Hey there, beautiful souls, and welcome to another episode of Pain to Power. I'm your host, Jill Ripley, and today's conversation is an important one, especially for women who are thoughtful, intuitive, high functioning, and quietly questioning their relationship with alcohol. It's about the women who look like they're doing just fine on the outside, successful, capable, responsible, yet feeling an inner nudge they can't ignore, a knowing, a sense that alcohol, even if it's socially acceptable and not outwardly destructive, may be keeping them stuck, disconnected, or dimmed in ways they can't quite put into words. If you've ever found yourself in that exhausting start stop cycle, if you've tried moderation and wondered why it feels harder than it should, if alcohol occupies mental space even on days you're not drinking, or if there's a quiet voice inside you saying, there's more for me than this, then this conversation's for you. Today, I'm joined by Lauren Fay, a sobriety coach, author of Blurred Lines, and powerful advocate for women living in that often overlooked gray area. Lauren helps professional, ambitious women reclaim their freedom by changing their relationship with alcohol, not through shame, willpower, or rigid rules, but through deep self inquiry, nervous system awareness, and holistic healing. Welcome, Lauren. I am so happy to have you here today.
Hi, Jill. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, I truly enjoyed our conversation previously, and I just thought this was going to make the most amazing conversation for my listeners to dig into.
Yeah.
You work with women who don't identify as alcoholics, yet feel alcohol is holding them back. What made you realize this group was being missed in sobriety conversations?
The reason why I work with women at this point in their relationship with alcohol is because I was a professional while I had a very unhealthy, dysfunctional relationship with alcohol. And, I did hit a personal rock bottom and it was not good. And I really wanted to advocate for the fact that you don't have to get that low before you decide to make a change with your relationship to alcohol. And so I think that there's a lot of just women out there that are settling for their lives being good enough, that are maybe waking up and they don't have the energy that they'd like to have, or they don't have the inspiration, the motivation to really get after their dreams. And the identifying culprit to that is alcohol. And so, no, they wouldn't identify as an alcoholic. They wouldn't maybe want to go into traditional recovery or even into a treatment center, but they absolutely want to change this relationship and they realize that their life could be better without it. So that was just the group that I wanted to give permission to say, hey, this isn't necessarily, or maybe isn't a problem compared to societal standards, but it's a problem to me. And that's a good enough reason to want to change this relationship with alcohol.
I totally resonate with that sentiment because for so many years I wanted to quit drinking. Alcohol was, my best friend for a good portion of my life. And I thought it was my best friend, but I didn't realize it truly was holding me back from being my best self. And it wasn't until, well, I'm 11 years sober now. So, through the years, I had this back and forth relationship saying, you know, I was high functioning. I always did everything that I was supposed to do. And I would wake up, do all the housework, the kids stuff, take care of everything I needed to. But once that 5 o'clock hit, it was time to release. And everywhere we went had alcohol. So it just permeated every part of our lives. And I was so grateful that I finally was able to get sober.
Yeah. Yes, I can relate to a lot of what you just said. I too was very high functioning and I'm 8 years sober this month, actually. But the
Congratulations.
reality, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, what a journey it is, and what a
Uh,
humbling journey it is.
for sure. For sure.
Yeah. But a big part of my reality was the amount of suffering I did in silence and the amount of suffering and drinking, quite honestly, that I did behind closed doors. And so I say, like, I was able to show up in my life, right? I was still going to work and I still had money in the bank and, all of those things that maybe one wouldn't say, like, oh, she's an alcoholic because she hasn't lost everything. She doesn't live under a bridge. So I can say I was high functioning, but it's like, is that really true? Because I was suffering every single day, whether I was recovering from a hangover and just pushing through and acting like everything was fine, or whether I was just, white knuckling it until I could have that next drink, like couldn't wait for 5 o'clock to roll around. And I would always find a reason. I earned it. I had a hard day or I had a great day and I wanted to celebrate. There was always a reason to drink. And so I just was like a mixture of all of the things where silently suffering in private behind closed doors, drinking way more than anyone even realized I was drinking, and then portraying myself a certain way when I did emerge and show myself to the world.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that. I tell people I was not a cheap date.
No, I was not either. I
Yeah.
was a high like top shelf martini drinker, and red wine was the cornerstone of my identity, and it had to be good.
Yeah. Red wine was so it wasn't for me, it wasn't the expensive alcohol, it was the amount of alcohol. So when you go out to dinner and you drink, drinks are expensive, right? So you have 3, 4, 5, 6 drinks, and that gets costly.
It does
So,
get costly.
yeah, so anyway. Now your book is called Blurred Lines. What are the lines that alcohol tends to blur for women specifically?
Oh goodness. For women specifically, it's just that, okay, so that blurry area of settling, in my opinion. It's like, when did we decide or co-sign on this idea that, we had to play small or settle for things being good enough, or that we had to overextend ourselves at our own sacrifice and caretake others and put ourselves second or even last? And it's like, when did all of that become the rules that we live by? And that is just so debilitating. And it's such an energy drain as well. And I do believe that when we are at that like energy drain, we're more susceptible to reach for the easy button. And alcohol for many people is that easy button because it quietly soothes, that internal turmoil and that disconnect from how you want to feel to how you really feel. And then it works and then it stops working. And that's the part we really need to talk about. So I think it's just that blurry space of women believing that they can have more and that they're deserving of more, that they're worthy of more, that they truly can have a very fulfilling and satisfying life, and they don't have to settle for mediocre or good enough. And they certainly don't have to self-sacrifice themselves in order to get what they really want. And the first thing that I would say needs to go is anything that's going to drain your life force energy. And in this case, it really would be alcohol.
I totally agree with that. So you've been alcohol free since 2018. Was there a single moment that really just said for you, enough is enough?
Yes, I definitely hit a rock bottom. So during my drinking career, I was a professional fitness instructor. I was very meticulous about my nutrition and my water intake and working out every day. And sometimes that was honestly just to combat the hangovers. And so my physical body was persevering through the daily poisoning with alcohol, but my mental body went downhill so fast. And it just there was no joy in anything. Every day was victim mentality. Woe is me. I was this good person that seemingly everything bad was happening to, and I didn't deserve any of that. And it just, the stories go on and on and on. So it was my mental health that really took me down. And there was this point where I was like, I don't even think I want to be alive anymore. And that scared the heck out of me. I couldn't believe that I'd gotten to that point where I truly felt like there's no way out of this. And so when I decided that no, actually I do want to be alive, like I want to live in this life. I just have to live differently. I knew without a question of a doubt that I had to let alcohol go. I was able to see that it was the number one denominator in all of my suffering. I truly was. It was kind of a miracle moment, like a spiritual intervention, with myself. It wasn't an outside intervention from family or friends or anything. It was me versus me. And I finally had my own back. And I finally decided that I was worth it. And I just knew that I had to let alcohol go. And so I did. And I haven't gone back to it for 8 years, nor do I plan on going back to it.
It's so funny you say that because I also was a fitness instructor. I was so into taking care of my body. In my early 20s, I had quit smoking. And the day I quit smoking, I started an exercise program and I fell in love with fitness. And so through all of it, the biggest thing that remained was the alcohol. And I think, I would get up and exercise early in the morning, I think just to prove to myself that that hangover wasn't going to keep me from my exercise. I'm a healthy person and I am fit and I'm just doing it. It's so funny that you were in that same kind of space.
Yeah. Oh, I was definitely in that space. And there's a big drinking culture in the fitness industry. And it is so contradictory, isn't it? My dad actually said to me once, I always just found it so peculiar that you were so meticulous with your diet every day and you worked out so hard. And then you would go home and you would poison yourself every night, and it, I just never saw it that way. It was just part of my identity. It was part of the routine. And, it was what everyone else did.
Well,
Right.
see, therein lies the thing for me, right? And so it doesn't just go for the fitness industry. I worked in the insurance industry. I did life insurance for a while and I did personal lines insurance for a while. And even in real estate, because I'm also a realtor, all the functions that you go to, the networking events, everything it's at a bar. There's alcohol, like it's a big deal if there's an open bar somewhere. It's almost like a reward, And so I guess that's what makes it so challenging when you do finally decide to give it up, that you're different from everyone else in the room.
Yes, that is probably, I would say, one of the biggest roadblocks to changing your relationship with alcohol is suddenly you don't belong in the room anymore, And when I say that, meaning our society makes drinking so okay and so socially acceptable and even encouraged. We're drinking at baby showers now. We're drinking at movie theaters now. It's like it's everywhere. We're drinking in insulated tumblers at our children's football games. It's just everywhere. And so if you take out that action that includes you, then obviously the opposite of that is you're excluded. And the biggest fear of our human experience is to not belong. That's what we
Right.
desire the most, is to belong. And so if we take this thing out and that means we don't belong anymore, why would we do that? Why would we
Right.
intentionally kick ourselves out of the circle? So it is a huge roadblock to overcome. And of course, obviously, we're here to show that it's very possible and that many, many other circles exist. There are so
Yeah.
many other things to do without drinking alcohol, but it's scary for someone who's never done it before. And it is going against the grain. And that honestly takes an act of bravery. And it just sometimes doesn't come right away.
Yeah. So for me, I am totally fine with going to a bar, sitting down and having an O'Doul's or seltzer with lime and cranberry or whatever. I'm 11 years sober. I have no intentions of ever going back because I see the world that opened up for me when I finally let go of that illusion that alcohol was my friend. Alcohol literally ruined my life. It gave me a temporary sense of relief at the end of the day, and I wasn't aware of all the other ways that it was impacting my existence. I was not patient with my kids the way I wished I had been. I wasn't patient with people in life as I wish I could have been. And I see now just how much easier life has become since I got sober.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. You know, when I actually wrote this story in my book, when I was 3 months sober, it was my 31st birthday. And I went on a date with a man that I had known pre-sobriety. And we went to a restaurant that I'd been to many times in my not sobriety days. And I just was like, I can do this, no problem. And it was so uncomfortable for me. And I was still very much in that, if I can't drink, then you can't drink either, right? You need to coddle me and hold my hand through this really uncomfortable process. And now I don't think that's entirely untrue. And we can certainly go into that. I think setting yourself up for success with supportive people around you is crucial in the beginning for that wibble wobble back and forth. But I just, pulled my shoulders back, once again, acted like everything was fine. And in that moment, I was like, I am not fine. And I had to switch my mindset from, again, hey, I made this choice to become sober, but I'm still suffering. I'm still a victim in my own decision, to, okay, Lauren, you made this decision. So how are you going to live with it? And that was a big moment for me. And it happened on that date where I was like, if I'm going to actually be free in my decision and not suffer in restaurants and on dates and whatnot, then I need to learn how to embody my decision to be an alcohol free woman and actually, again, like make that my identity. And so today, no problem. Like I can go to a bar, no problem, right? And have the seltzer water and the lime. But that took practice. And I think it does also take just building that muscle of confidence, through practice and repetition in that identity of the alcohol-free woman.
Yeah, you just have to own it, and like I said, I have no trouble now going somewhere where there is alcohol. Sometimes I just have water or nothing, and it really doesn't make a big difference to me anymore.
Hmm. Right.
Why do you think that moderation works for some people and not for others?
Moderation. Oh, do I have my opinions on moderation? I think moderation works for people who truly don't have that soul declaration and that honest inventory with themselves that their relationship with alcohol isn't worth the energy that moderation takes. So if someone has a self-declared problematic or dysfunctional or unhealthy, however you want to word it, relationship with alcohol, and they have to set rules for themselves and lay out strategies and negotiate and have strict boundaries that they operate within just to moderate, I would say, why would you spend so much energy doing that? Why don't you just eliminate it altogether and spend that energy going elsewhere? And so I think moderation is very tricky. Now, there are plenty of people who don't have a self-declared problematic, dysfunctional, unhealthy relationship with alcohol, and they're able to drink, and that's their decision. But for me, for someone who did declare this is a problem, and for the women that I help who've declared this is a problem, I am always going to encourage total abstinence because I just think that it is such a better use of your time to completely let go of the thing that robs you of so much life force energy.
Absolutely. My shut-off switch was broken. I would tell myself I would moderate. I would try. I would try. I'm only going to have one or two, only one or two. And then 3 bottles later, I'm like, where did that go? Right. I never went to a meeting. I just one day I found out that one of my children was at risk of self-harm, and I just really decided that I could not be there for one of them if they needed me. And I had a very kind older woman tell me about her experience with alcoholism and how she quit, and she gave me this very simple strategy that, like, when she as she's telling me this, I'm like, that could work for me.
Mm.
She just said that her alcohol problem seemed to be way worse than mine even was, which was I was totally blown away by. But she said she got a day calendar, and for every day that she didn't drink, she would mark an X
Mm.
and mark an X, and every day she would mark an X. And for 25, she had 25 years worth of calendars with
Wow.
X's marked on them. And in that moment, for me, that one concept just seemed so doable. So on my way home, I got a calendar. The next day I started. And for me, an X seems like bad. So I put check marks. So I put a check mark on my calendar. And, I did that for about 3 months. And finally, I was like, you know what? I don't even have a desire to drink anymore. And so I haven't used it since, but that was the catalyst for me that gave me the ability to move forward and just get out of that habit. So drinking was a habit for me, and I didn't have a shut off switch.
Mhm.
So it was a bad habit. So that's what worked for me. Do
Yeah.
you have a go-to strategy for people that seems to work more easily than others, or is it more of a case by case?
Everyone's situation is going to be different. This is my number one strategy, and it also circles back to moderation, is just total and complete radical honesty with yourself. Like, you are the only person that can decide if you enjoy the way that you're spending your time, that you enjoy the way that you spend your energy, that you think it's a good use of your time, that you are satisfied and fulfilled in your life. And so that honesty might result in the decision for total elimination. It might result in the, hey, I'm just going to crack open the door and moderate for a little while, and maybe it works, and then that stops working too. And then you have to get re honest with yourself to perhaps look at total elimination. So, my first strategy is really that personal inventory and that personal honesty because no one else can make it for you. You have to get sober for yourself. Like there might be external reasons why, but those won't last. It ultimately has to be for you. And you have to believe that you're worth the change and the challenges and the efforting that's required to change such a big, deeply ingrained habit. So that's where I would really start. I personally also did the daily thing. So I downloaded a days counter on my phone and it's still running today, which it just lives in the background on my phone. And
That's cool. So, forgive me for interrupting. So it's an app and you click it when you start and then it just keeps running so you can just go back and see it like a daily tally?
yeah, it just keeps running. And I chose a very, very simple one. You get to just plug in your date, you get to title it whatever you want. I titled it, I Took My Life Back, and it just runs. Now, there are actually like sober apps, sober counters, and they also will tally, how much money you're saving, or for people that are using alcohol as a weight loss journey, like how much weight you're losing. So it just kind of tracks everything. I just went with a really, really simple one. But
I
it was,
lost 60 pounds when I quit drinking. 60,
I did not
60.
have any weight to lose when I stopped drinking.
Oh, I did, and
Yeah.
that was kind of the paradox for me is I was a health and fitness coach, and I had my ACE personal trainer certification, and I was overweight. I'm like, "Why am I overweight? I work out, I eat good. Why am I overweight?"
It's like,
You
oh,
know,
because
60
we're,
pounds.
sabotaging our metabolism and our hormones with this
Mhm.
daily liquid. But back to just that counter and you using the calendar, I think it's really cool to have those visuals. It's just like it's neat to make it one more day and you hear this like one day at a time. I also, we know that it's so much more than just making it through a day. Like eventually we need to eradicate the reasons why we were drinking in the first place. Eventually we need to learn how to sit with and how to feel and express the emotions that we have suppressed and diluted and quieted with the alcohol for so long. So there's so much more work than just eliminating the alcohol. And sometimes if we just check or we just look at a day's counter, then it's like, cool, I have 30 days without drinking, but I've done no background work. And that background work is required, quite honestly, in my opinion.
Oh, for
But then,
sure.
yeah, but then the tricky part, of course, with counting days is especially in the traditional recovery, if you were to slip or have a relapse, you lose all your time when you have to start your counter back at zero. And I just think, oh my God, what a way to just knock you down when you're already down. And
Yeah.
so I just want to encourage everyone listening that if you're counting days and you slip and you drink alcohol, just remember that we're not losing the experience of being alcohol free for X amount of days. We're not losing the proof that we can do it. We're not losing any of those things. If you want to start back at zero, fine, but certainly don't kick yourself while you're already down. I just
Yeah,
don't
that
think that's effective at all.
that ties into my next question. How do you help women release shame when they've failed moderation over and over?
Gosh, shame. So I obviously was full of shame. I had so much shame throughout my addiction and in my early sobriety. I didn't even really know what shame was. And I know that sounds so maybe naive, but quite honestly, I was maybe a month or 2 months sober, probably 2 months sober. And I went out to dinner with one of my best girlfriends and I was apologizing about something. I think it was because she had a new baby. And I went over to her house when I was, on the tail end of being high on cocaine. And I just I'm so sorry. I came into your safe space and your environment with your little baby. And she was like, oh my God, Lauren, you have so much shame. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. And so she turned me on to Brene Brown, and Brene Brown held my hand through my whole learning of what shame really was. And shame is when we make it mean something about us. So guilt is like this action was bad, right? And shame is I am bad. And that is a really monstrous way of living where you're just constantly berating yourself and belittling yourself and putting yourself down over and over, oftentimes in the background, right? Subconsciously, like we don't even realize we're doing it. And so we have to separate our actions from our worth. To kind of full circle what your question was, how do we combat shame? It's like you made a bad choice, but you are not a bad person. You took a bad action, but it doesn't say anything about you. It doesn't mean that you're broken or that you're inadequate or that you were incapable of doing this. It just means that you and your human form made a bad choice. What do
I
you want to
love
do
that you
about it?
say that.
Yeah.
I love
So
that
that's
you
how I
say that.
combat it.
That is one of my main goals in this whole experience of my podcast, my book, my everything is to help people, women especially, because it seems as though they have that more need for it. I know there are plenty of men who don't love themselves either, but it seems to be very prevalent in women. But I really want people, not just women, to understand that you need to love yourself. Like we're all so full of guilt and shame and not enoughness. And I tell people you're enough just because you're here, right? You exist. That's enough.
Mhm.
And whatever happened to you in your past, whatever someone did to you doesn't make you bad, or whatever you did to someone else doesn't make you bad. We're all worthy of love.
Mhm. And for someone who's hearing that for the first time, that's going to be like learning a new language. It's not just going to make sense. And that's what's so important about following the footsteps of someone who's done it before you, because we're living proof that it's possible, even if it sounds completely impossible right now. When it comes to self-love, I don't believe that like we want to hurt ourselves. And yet, someone who has this addiction or this unhealthy relationship with alcohol is hurting themselves every day that they drink it. It's a soul hurt, it's a physical body hurt, it's an emotional hurt. And if you really loved yourself, right, you wouldn't make those choices. Like that sounds all great and dandy, but we know that we've been hijacked into our addiction. So the self-love is absolutely something that is so non-negotiable when it comes to eradicating the addiction, because it's like when you love yourself, you won't do something that hurts you so badly. You won't set out and intentionally self-harm in these ways. And that is so much more than just the action of drinking alcohol. It's also the way we think about ourselves and the stories we tell ourselves. But someone who goes from maybe a rock bottom addiction, like me, to sobriety isn't going to go from addiction to I love myself. I love myself, right? And so the way that I really help people through that is maybe you just have to shift out of your self-hate to toleration. Like, can you tolerate yourself for a little while? And then maybe that shifts to maybe you just like yourself, even just a little bit, right? For a little while. And eventually you compound and compound and compound until that does emerge as I love myself. I honor myself enough to be really respectful of the actions I take, what I put in my body, what I surround myself with. And then when you do have that, you just won't want to go back to something that hurt you so badly. You see it completely differently.
Your approach is so practical. What helps women feel grounded and confident in their early alcohol free living?
It's repetition, repetition, repetition. Like we're doing something brand new. We've had however many years or decades practicing our existence one way, and that involved a deeply rooted habit and behavior with alcohol. And now we're trying something new, and it's not maybe going to be like gold star, gold medal right out the gate. But the more that we practice, turning down the drink when it's offered to us, the more that we practice going out to dinner and not having wine with our steak meal, or the more we practice going to the event and having the soda instead of the champagne that's being passed around, the more that we learn that, oh, I can do all of these things without alcohol. And not only can I do all of these things, alcohol is not even required for these things to take place. Like the foundation, the fundamentals of a baby shower is not to drink the mimosas, it's to celebrate the mother and the baby, and we just start to like look at things differently. So to build the confidence, we just have to keep practicing, keep stacking those wins, and really start to break the associations that alcohol is required to do anything in your life, because that's just not true. We're living proof. 11 years, 8 years, we have done everything from deaths to births to celebrations without alcohol.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Now, what would you say to the woman listening who feels alcohol is holding her back but is afraid to imagine life without it?
I would tell her to just have a lot of compassion with herself, because, again, she's looking at the unknowns and the unknown is scary. That's a completely normal and acceptable human response. She's not an exception to the rule. She's not any different or weaker than anyone else. She's just a human having a big fear, and fear is normal and wants to keep us safe. So, what we need to do is have the willingness to believe that it is possible to have a better life without it. The willingness to believe that it is possible that life on the other side of this relationship with alcohol can actually be really, really good. Maybe we don't know how, maybe we have no practice yet, but if we at least believe that it's possible, then the door to possibility cracks open. If we don't believe it's even possible, that door stays shut and it has to be cracked open. And then maybe you just open it slowly, or maybe you throw it open. I don't know. But if you truly feel like it's just not possible for you, then the world will say, okay, cool. We don't have to give you anything to make it possible for you then. And so our thoughts really do impact the trajectory of our lives. And so
Oh,
just
that
believe.
of course.
Yeah, just believe. And then from there, start taking the aligned actions to actually make that belief possible.
If someone takes away just one truth from blurred lines, what do you hope that is?
The resilience of the human spirit, that would be the one takeaway from the blurred lines is we can suffer and go through heartbreak and heartache and our lowest of lows, and we can be resilient. We can have the reclamation of power. We can come out on the other side. The human body, the human spirit is so beyond powerful. And alcohol is a liquid in a bottle that we turn our power over to. It deserves no power. And when we move that out of the way and we reclaim our power, there is literally no stopping humans. There's proof everywhere. Humans can literally do whatever they want, anything that they want to do. And so that's the takeaway I would say is that the resilience of the human spirit is miraculous, quite honestly. And then, of course, the
That
more
is so
practical.
powerful.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I was going to say the more practical response is that just coming out and allowing yourself to be seen isn't as scary as it seems because my suffering was mostly behind closed doors.
Yeah, I'm with you. My suffering was very much behind closed doors. Lauren, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your wisdom, your honesty, and your heart. This conversation speaks to so many women who felt confused, stuck, or quietly limited by their relationship with alcohol. And you bring such a compassion and clarity to a topic that's often surrounded by shame. For those listening who felt seen in today's conversation, I want you to know this. You don't need a label, a rock bottom, or permission from anyone to choose something different for yourself. Curiosity is enough. Desire is more than enough. If you'd like to learn more about Lauren's work or explore her book, Blurred Lines, I'll include the links in the show notes so you can connect with her and take the next step in whatever way feels aligned for you. And to you, beautiful soul listening, thank you for spending this time with us. These conversations matter, and so does your healing. Until next time, be gentle with yourself, and remember, turning pain into power always begins with self trust. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. I truly honor you for being here and for choosing to do this deeper work. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to stay connected. You can sign up for my newsletter at empoweredbythestorm.com/newsletter. And when you do, you'll receive a free copy of my How to Love Yourself workbook as a thank you. My book, Empowered by the Storm, is also available on Amazon if you'd like to go deeper into this work on your own time. And if you're feeling called to more personal support, you can visit my website to explore private coaching and see if it feels like the right next step for you. Until next time, be gentle with yourself, trust your journey, and remember, your healing matters.